Today's podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek and Cuts. Guys, what's up? We're back on the All Good Things podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have such a special guest today. This podcast is one that's close to my heart. This guy I've known for a very long time. He has managed some of your favorite comedians of past and present. He's a manager, he's a producer, someone that has been in the Hollywood game a long time. Someone I love comedy here. I love to talk about comedy. That's why I wanted to have Barry Katz on the show today. Barry, hello. Incredible to have you here.
It's I can't believe I made the cut, number 10,167. It's thank you.
That is our 10,000th episode today, yes. Barry has a podcast called Industry Standard. I just did it. You guys can go find it. It's probably out the same week this is out, possibly, or I don't know what's your rotation, Barry?
I will hold it today, because this clearly is mine is like a piece of confetti on the floor here.
This is from live streaming. When we hit a certain point on live streaming, we pop a confetti.
Got it.
So listen, that's a different show, but
listen, I've heard of popping confetti in different ways, but that's good. It's good.
No, that's called OnlyFans. It's a different platform entirely.
Jason, I just want to say to your audience who might not appreciate this as much as I do before we start.
Yeah.
Like, what you've done is incredible. Like, you walk in. He lives in like this palatial mansion overlooking the entire city.
It's 1,900 square feet.
You come down this stairway. Literally, I haven't done this much exercise just walking to the podcast studio, and you built something that's really extraordinary. And what you've done in your career is just unbelievable, and it lets everybody in the world know that. Anybody who has a desire to do something and wants to go forward in a way where there's just no prisoners, like the urgency is like, I've got to do it.
Yes.
Can do it. And that's what you've done.
Got to do it with urgency. And that's why I wanted to have you on. And that's what we talked about a little bit on your podcast. And that's why I wanted to have you here, because I look at you as sort of a comedy Svengali. And that's how I pitched you to my wife when she said, "Who's coming in for the podcast?" I said, "Barry Katz." And I go, "Well, what's he like?" I said, "He's the head of a comedy Svengali." And she said, "What does Svengali mean?" And then I said, "I don't know."
Well,
Do you know what Svengali means?
Yes, it's like kind of like a person who's, in my opinion, part shaman.
Yes.
Part sage.
Yes, that's you.
Part religious hierarchy figure.
That's you. You go to temple sometimes.
Philosopher.
That's you. And that's
and clairvoyant.
Yeah. And that, I think, that's why when I talk to you, I love talking to you, because you're like a very calming, even what we just talked about in the last podcast was so like eye-opening to me. You're like, why don't you tour? Why don't you do X, Y, and Z? Or he would say like, well, Jason, you should do this. And I'd go, well, I already did that. And he'd go, well, I'm going to challenge you. You can do it this way. And I need more of that in my life. I need people that believe. It's so hard to do this, not to complain, but so hard to do this for so many years. I've been doing this for since I was 22. I left Saturday Night Live. Doing stand-up since I was 23, 27, 28 years. So hard to keep that mental aspect and to keep going. And I think that's what you offer to everybody in your life.
I want to be that. To be honest, I'm just grateful that your wife inquired about me. That alone is like, that's one of my proudest moments. It's like to have somebody who's like that charismatic, like literally, you can. I don't mean to give your wife a big head or you a big head, but it's like one of the things about this business that I found is that charisma is king, and granted, I know the audience might say, hey, listen, well, not everybody who does really, really well has charisma, but
Yeah.
about 90 to 95% do.
100%, yeah.
And so, and it's something that you can't teach, you can't train, you know, you're just born with it.
Which one of your clients has charisma?
Everyone would
All of
have
them.
charisma. It's like you.
Who stands out?
Well, of all the people that I work with,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, and on the female side, who had enormous charisma and still does, is Whitney Cummings.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So it's like when I met Whitney Cummings, a lot of people don't know the story. So I was with Jay Moore at Sundance, and he was hosting something called Festival Dailies, I believe. And we met Whitney, and she was like sort of like a correspondent, like interviewing people on the street.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting her, and I was just like, I thought she had such overwhelming charisma, and she had, even if she had fear inside, it didn't come out externally. It stayed inside her. And if she didn't have fear, then it was the way it was. But she was the type of person who walked into a room and she took the room.
I was just going to say that.
And when I see your wife, she's the type of person who walks in a room.
She is.
And she takes the room. And so that's why I said that. And so Whitney was the kind of person, when I met with her, I said, listen, I don't know what you're doing, but, and I guess it goes back to what you say about the Svengali thing. I met with her and I said, listen, have you ever done stand-up? She said, no. I said, I think you could do stand-up.
Wow.
I said, have you ever acted? She said, no. I said, I really believe that you could act. I said, have you ever written? She said, no. I said, I think you could be a writer. I think you can do all these things.
Wow.
And I'd like to work with you to do those.
Do you know how much that means to somebody when they're just standing there as a correspondent with a cameraman in Park City, just kind of barely getting started? That means so much to someone when someone says that. That's like, wow, I can do that? Really? And I'm sure she thought that. I'm sure she's grateful for that.
Well, that means a lot. Mitch, you're going to make it. Things are going to be great. You're going to be a big star. I'm sorry.
Quick break in the action to let you guys know today's podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Yes, SeatGeek, the one and only, the greatest ticketing app out there, the only ticketing app that I use, the only ticketing app that you should use. They've been with me since the beginning here on this podcast. They are such a great company. And right now, guys, if you use my code NASH10, yes, you're going to get 10% off your order at SeatGeek. You can use this code as many times as you want. It's the code NASH10, and you can use the code as many times as you want and get 10% off. So right off the bat, SeatGeek's offering something really cool for you guys. So go right now, go to the link in the description, and check out SeatGeek. You will not be disappointed. Download the app and keep it on your phone. And my thanks to SeatGeek for sponsoring this podcast. Okay, so Whitney Cummings was someone that was in your, and you represented Patrice O'Neill?
I worked with Patrice O'Neill. I owned two personal appearance agencies, New York Entertainment and another one. And I figured out a way to rig the system to where I could get people submitted to all these college and places and to get work. And he was one of the people there. But I never managed Patrice.
You were getting him college
But I managed
gigs.
my first 8 clients were, I think, if I get this right, Chapelle. There was Jay Moore, Jim Brewer, Daryl Hammond, Tracy Morgan,
Incredible.
Tracy, Dane Cook,
I know. Jim, I know.
Dane Cook,
Dane, I know.
Wanda Sykes, and there's a bunch of people like that. So,
what's the first thing that happens when you see Dave Chapelle? First time you saw Dave Chapelle, what happened? Where did you see him? Where'd you meet him?
So, coincidentally, I was just in New York, and I asked to meet with the old manager of my comedy club, the Boston Comedy Club in Greenwich Village. And his name's Jason Steinberg. He's a manager now. He manages Tony Woods and a few other people, Donnell Rollins. Mm-hmm. And I got a call from him late at night, like 1 o'clock in the morning. I believe it was on a Monday or something like that. He said, I just saw this kid go on last. I had him go in last from D.C., and I'd like you to come back Tuesday and see him. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Tuesday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Wednesday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Thursday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Friday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Saturday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Sunday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Monday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Tuesday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Wednesday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Thursday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Friday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Saturday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Sunday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Monday. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'll be there Tues And
you're in D.C.?
No, he was from D.C. and he came to New York.
Yeah.
So I get there Tuesday. It's before the show starts. People are coming in. The lights are on. And I meet Dave like in the middle of the comedy club.
Yeah.
In like a walkway. And I remember this. I shook his hand. And it was like the dead zone, you know, with Christopher Walken, where he could see the future. And I literally said to him, I said, Dave, I don't know how to tell you this, but I think you're amazingly gifted and talented. I think you're going to do incredible things. I want to represent you.
You hadn't seen him do stand up yet?
Never saw it, videotape, nothing.
Okay.
And he said, "What are you talking about? You've never seen me perform. You don't even know what I do." I said, "I can just feel it, and I want you to know that I want to work with you."
Barry, some would say, hearing that story, that you said that to everybody. Did you or did you not?
I haven't said that to everybody because certain people that I did see on stage, like Jay Moore, I saw at Catch a Rising Star when he was 17 go on this lineup of like amazing people. And I saw his acting ability on stage. And I've always been inspired by all the tools that people have in their toolbox in entertainment.
Yeah.
Some of the things that always blow me away are like Cher or Lady Gaga these days who can do great music and then do an acting performance that like in A Star Is Born that you're like, holy shit. Like I've always been a fan of anything that creates holy shit moments. And that's why I have so much respect for you because
thanks.
You're like the holy shit moment microwave. It's like literally if I just said to you, hey, listen, I need something in 7 minutes.
Right.
Go out there and give me something that blows me the fuck away.
Oh, sure.
You will create a holy moment in that time.
Yeah. And well, that's training from making videos. You have to come up with something every day.
Yeah. You know, when you started, nobody ever thought you were talented, Jason. Yeah, right. I don't understand sometimes. But anyway, let's keep going with this.
Wait, what are you saying? You're saying I don't
saying
believe in
that
myself
you had
enough?
that gift.
Oh, thanks.
Early on.
Well, I guess so. Yeah, you know, I maybe. Thank you.
Anyway,
I have trouble taking compliments.
So I know. So the thing is so I look at these tools in somebody's toolbox, and when I want to work with somebody, I want to work with somebody who, in my heart, I believe can act dramatically and comedically. Could host a show. Could do their own podcast.
Yeah.
Could write their own books. Could write their own half-hour show. Could write their own movie, okay? Could do live stand-up all across the country,
right?
In personal appearances all over the place, and could inspire people in the world to see the possibilities of what can happen when you put your mind to it. And that's always been exciting to me. So when you... Like I've had a number of people on Saturday Night Live, and you know, arguably one of the greatest jobs there is. You used to work for Norm Macdonald, and we're there at the desk. And if you can break through and get Lorne Michaels to say, "You're my person," I mean, this guy knows what he wants. Nobody's going to tell him what to do.
Yes,
and so he's the arbiter.
He's incredible.
And he's
incredible
seen
way to pick talent.
And he's seen everything in the world, and he chooses somebody that you believe in. Then you know that obviously there's something happening. And for me, there was always something happening like that, and I didn't quite understand it, just like most artists don't understand it. But I would put my weight forward on an artist, and I would get excited about them, and the world got excited about them, and the entertainment business got excited about them. And that's something that I always loved doing. And to this day, it's like you know, I just look at somebody like from today that it's like Brad Williams, who, if you don't know who Brad Williams is, he's a 4'4" comedian.
Sure, I know Brad Williams.
Who's a little person who obviously he's 4'4", and when I met with him, I was just like, holy, this guy is like a human being who's overcome all this. How inspiring is that? And number one, and number two, it's like everything he says, he can get away with anything because he's like almost like a human animated character that's real.
Yeah.
So no one is going to dispute or with or go whatever. He can do anything he wants. And then the third thing that I loved about him is that every minute he's in front of the camera on stage, he gives it 1,000%.
Yeah.
Like it's the last performance of his life.
That's awesome.
And when I met with him, like I was like, I have to represent you. I want to represent you so badly.
Yeah.
And then to see his work and what he's done, and I mean, it's the venues that he's selling out, these huge places and all over the world, and just launched a YouTube special that has like I think 1 million views in a month, and his social media.
What's the difference between now with stand-ups and say 10 years ago in terms of their careers? It's a stand-up. It's insane right now, right? This is the best time for stand-up ever, right?
Yeah, it's incredible. But I will say this: I've been humbled and blessed to be a part of some incredible things, like with Dane Cook. Together, because of him, we started social media together for artists.
I had Dane on the show. People always ask me, who was your favorite guest on this podcast? I say Dane Cook.
Yeah, incredible.
Incredible what he achieved. And the insight he offers.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
And his attitude and his energy and the way that he's looked at adversity. And, he's had people, I really admire people who've had people come for them and the resilience of that. Because, he took a lot of shit from people for being successful. And to hear him talk about that, to hear the other side of it, I loved it. It's so cathartic.
My mother always said, and your mother too, probably, there's 3 sides to every story. There's their side, there's your side, and there's the truth.
Today's podcast is also brought to you by Cuts. Yes, Cuts. I'm so excited. Cuts clothing brand. Amazing. I'm actually wearing Cuts right now. You can see I have the black t-shirt on, looking really good, and the black pants. Here they are. Okay, you can see me right there. Pretty exciting. I was actually really excited that Cuts came on as a sponsor because I've been wearing Cuts for years. Get ready to be the most stylish of your crew this summer with Cuts. Most guys would wear a t-shirt every day of their lives if they could. The problem is that most t-shirts are not acceptable to wear at work or out on a hot date night. Today's sponsor, Cuts, has finally changed that. Cuts t-shirts are such high quality, wrinkle-free, and so buttery soft that you can look like you're dressing up even when you're dressing down. You never have to substitute comfort for fashion ever again. Dive into summer with Cuts. And it's true, guys. I mean, look at this. This is a beautiful, beautiful tee that I feel confident, fresh, and free in. Not to mention these pants, which are sort of like, they're sort of somewhere in between like a khaki and a jean. Like a Jackie. I'll call them Jackies. Embrace the summer state of mind with Cuts. For a limited time, our listeners get 20% off your entire order when you use code NASH at checkout. That's 20% off your order at cutsclothing.com with promo code NASH. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the perfect blend of style and comfort with Cuts Clothing. All right, guys, you heard it there. Go check out Cuts. They're a great brand. They're here. They're here to stay. And we love them, and I absolutely love this outfit. And my thanks to Cuts for sponsoring. And now back to the podcast. He told me a great story. He said he went in for the hangover, and I think they told him like, well, we don't know if you're right for it, but we're looking to fill this spot for Alan. And Dane Cook said, you should cast Zach Galifianakis. Now Zach Galifianakis had been making fun of Dane for like on stage and stuff, and I just thought, that's so cool. Like Dane is such a purist in comedy that anyone else would have been like, well, I'm not going to suggest this guy. This guy's been terrible to me. But he suggested Zach, and Zach got the part.
And here's this
just like awesome. And I love Zach. I mean, Zach's hilarious.
And here's another thing about that movie that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
Dane was offered the movie.
Oh, Jesus. Was he really? The Bradley Cooper part?
No.
The Ed Helms part?
No.
Well, there's only one more person in there.
Justin Bartha.
The guy on the roof.
And so it was the height of everything that was happening with Dane.
Right.
And he was offered that role. But when he read the script and when I read the script, and again, I don't make decisions for artists. I'm only the cabinet. They're the president.
How hard is that to read a script and say, Jay Moore, you got to do this? And is that like, it's a gamble, right?
I'm only paid for one thing in my entire career.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And so, and I just like the greatest athletes in the world, or the greatest performers in the world, or the greatest actors in the world, nobody's batting 1,000.
Yeah.
But, I think my percentages are pretty high.
And then when The Hangover comes out, when The Hangover comes out, do you and Dan go?
No, because and I don't think Dane will be upset if I say this, because I've shared things with him that I felt were right and he didn't think were right.
Yeah.
And it worked out in his favor the other way. I thought he should do the movie based on something that I'd heard a long time ago. There's no such thing as little parts, only little actors. Mm-hmm. And when I talked to him about it, I talked to him about Marilyn Monroe, and I'm sorry for your audience that I forget the movie that she was in for like 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And it just was an incredible point in her career, and you never know what's going to happen. And
Brad Pitt and Thelma and Louise.
Yeah. So I actually thought Dane should do the movie.
Yeah.
But look, there's many instances like that. Jay Moore will tell you that he got offered the role in Blue Streak that Luke Wilson got. And the director then asked him to fly to L.A. and just do a screen test with Martin Lawrence. Right. And Jay said, I'm not doing it. Right. He offered me the role. Give me the role. And I'm like, Jay, just go and whatever, because they're going to meet Luke Wilson and I want you to get the role. He said, no, I'm not getting it. And I said to Jay, I just want you to tell me this. If this is a $200 million movie and it's wildly successful and it launches Luke Wilson's career, I want you to look me in the eye and tell me you will not be upset. And he said, I will not be upset. And I said, promise me you'll never mention it again. He said, I'll never mention it again. Yeah. And that's what the conversation I have with artists like Dane.
And did he mention it again?
Like, no.
No, he never mentioned it.
And the same with Dane. Look, this is the way it is. This is what I feel. But if it goes the way in my favor, I'm never going to mention it again to him. And he's never going to mention it again to me. And so, again, there's things that Dane... I'll just share something where Dane was so spot on and I was clueless in the beginning. Dane said, I want to build a website. I want to build a website. I'm like, website? What are you talking about? What is a website? He said, look at the U.S.
The first influencer, Dane Cook.
He said, look at the U.S. Army site. I said, the U.S. Army? Dane, what are we doing? Well, let's concentrate on this. Barry, this is the future. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I just don't know. He said, just negotiate with this guy, get him to do a website for me. I call the guy up. He wants $25,000 to build the website. I said, Dane, he wants $25,000 to build the website. He's like, negotiate with him. Get it down as best you can. I said, I'm trying. This guy's the hardest person I've ever had to negotiate with. He doesn't care. Yeah. So Dane ended up spending $25,000. I think we got extra pages for it. Back then you had pages. Yeah. You don't have to have it now. So the point is that I didn't understand his vision of being in his room and taking his bits and putting them on Napster with DaneCook.com after it.
Yeah.
I didn't understand his philosophy of answering the first 15,000 emails he got. So I was totally not understanding or on the same wavelength. And then I was grateful to be able to execute whatever vision he wanted me to execute in that world, and to be in a position where, let's say we do the first special at Boston Garden when he never ever done any hard ticket sales that big anywhere near it, and to be in the room when he pressed the button on his computer and sold out, 19,000 seats, in like, God knows, it seemed like hours or minutes. And then we had to roll over to a second show. He did 38,000 people in one night. No comedian to this day that I know of has ever done 2 shows in one NBA arena in one night. And he did it 4 times at Boston Garden, Madison Square Garden.
Unbelievable.
So I was a part of that world. And again, when I first saw him, and I think he would say this if he were sitting here, he didn't even really do that well. He had like a speech impediment that was really, I think, hindering him probably thinking about things too much or a little bit. And he didn't really have a lot of friends, and he kept really close to himself. And I don't know. I just saw something really, really special in him. And I was fortunate and humbled to be a part of his life. For 17 years, I managed him. And just to see his growth and it's not just about a rise. Like with comedians, you can see like when they learn things, they become better at all these different skill sets, and they're practicing them, repeating them over and over again. And then they're able to do things that you can't even believe. I was in Boston Garden. He did 2 hours and 45 minutes on the last show for a special that, by the way, he had booked a movie, Employee of the Month, for Lionsgate that happened. He only had like about a week to prepare for the special. There were no comedy clubs in the area where he was at. And yet he goes on and does 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Unbelievable.
And just destroys. And so I feel very blessed that I've been a part of these situations. But again, these artists have something special. They have charisma. They have the feeling that they know how to beat their demons. They know how to beat them down, and everybody has demons. Everybody watching this podcast has those voices in their head that lie to them.
Oh, wow.
And the thing is that when you really believe in yourself and you believe in what you're doing, it's just incredible what can happen. And I've seen it over and over again. You got to remember, like, I mean, I'm thinking to myself, like, I'll give you a few stories of just how this. Jim Brewer, okay?
Love Jim Brewer.
Jim Brewer, amazing. Like one of the funniest guys I've ever met, like in person, whatever. Does a show with Dave Chapelle for Matt Williams, who created Home Improvement and Roseanne and Cosby. And it's like the biggest spinoff. It's a Home Improvement spinoff. It's like fucking huge. They do the pilot, flies his whole family in. It's like the greatest time of my life.
Yeah.
I've got 2 artists on the show. It's the biggest spinoff. It's a
producer credit?
Yes.
Yes.
And
sometimes managers get producer credit on these sitcoms, right?
Yes.
And so you get a fee from the network.
Yes, and
to produce,
and
right?
business-wise, the way it normally works is that it's like a versus thing. Like if your fee is less than what the artist makes, then you just make up the difference or whatever. But it's not really look, I love being a producer of shows. I've been an executive producer on many, many shows, and I like it because I'm an extra vote for the artist.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I don't agree with the artist, I'm their vote to make things happen the way they want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back to that night, so it's just unbelievable, an amazing night. And I'll never forget this. I'm in the dressing room and I'm so excited. I can look through and see Chapelle and Brewer and the family are laughing, whatever. And I kind of just put my feet up and I'm like, oh man, fuck, this is what it's all about. And then, the phone rings in the dressing room and I'm like, hello? Hey, and it's Jim's lawyer.
Yeah.
Debbie Klein, who represented Jim Carrey and so many big people.
Sure.
It's like, Barry, are you alone? I'm like, yeah, it's the greatest night of my life. It's just incredible. It's a party here. It's so fantastic. I saw the ad and TV Guide too. It's so incredible, fantastic. Yeah, what? Wait, what? Well, you're joking, right? That. Well, do you want to talk to him, or you want me to talk to him? But hello? And the call came in that they were letting Jim go.
On the night of the show, shooting?
Yeah.
What did they do?
So
they bring in somebody else?
So I had to tell Jim on this beautiful night after his family, whatever.
No.
And it was one of the lowest moments, of course, of his career. And it was one of the lowest moments of my career. And this is what I want your audience also, if they take anything from this. Everything great that happens, you have to believe that something horribly is going to happen. I'm not saying you should will it to happen. You should prepare for it to happen, because the way the business is, it's structured just like life. A child is born, a person dies. And the way our world is structured, you get married, sometimes you get a divorce. You get a girlfriend again or a boyfriend, they break up. You get a job you love, you get fired. And what defines a great artist is not how they are when everything's going great. And this is what's amazing about you. What defines a great artist is how they deal with that survival mode of knowing that they have to turn around the circumstances. They have to instead of using something that was an anchor, they use it as a buoy. And so Jim gets fired, and this is like at the end of April or May or whatever. And this person that sat at NBC, Amy Walpert, who was a big fan of his, and we almost did the deal with NBC, and we didn't do it. We did it with Disney. And she was an incredible executive, and we came up with a plan to submit Jim to Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
And we worked so great together and hard together and came up with video for Jim. We were able to get him a test for Saturday Night Live for
get all his
Lorne Michaels.
Characters together.
And he did the test, and he got the call literally a week before the beginning of the season that he was being hired as a cast member.
Damn.
And
what's that call like? So tell me, keep going.
To me, like, the call is like it. Calls like that, I just want you to let you know, like, the bad calls and the good calls. I know it sounds odd to you and your audience, but they don't affect me either way, because there's this thing that Tom Hanks once said around a philosophy that all of us have heard over and over again in our lives, but the way he said it, and I'm going to paraphrase, so I hope I don't. He said that the night he won his first Oscar, and he's partying all night with his Oscar in his hand with Rita, his wife, and they finally get home at like 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and he goes into the bathroom with his Oscar and he closes the door and he looks in the mirror and he says to himself, "This too shall pass." And he explained that in the worst times, he says the same thing because this is the way the world is structured. There's always something that happens, and it's going to happen. There's, like you live in this beautiful place. I don't know your story. I don't know your situation. I don't know anything about anything. But I guarantee you there's stress.
Sure.
And somebody walks in here, and I'm walking through this place, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like, I'm like walking around here like I'm like a squirrel trying to get nuts.
It's a
like
small house.
It's Jesus Christ. My mother always said, would you rather a small house in Beverly Hills, or would you rather a mansion in some bad neighborhood?
But that's true. We're in a nice neighborhood. We're lucky. We're very blessed.
And so I walk through here, and I'm like, wow, this is like a dream. But I can guarantee you that Jason doesn't wake up every morning and think this is a dream. No. Now, when he got the house, Jason, as an entrepreneur, was very, very excited, I'm sure, that he got the house. And I'm sure it wore off after about a month, because then he was looking towards the next accomplishment he wanted to make. And that's what great entrepreneurs are. And I want to share a story. I hope you don't mind.
Please.
2 stories with my kids. First story, my son Zion, he's a record producer. He's 19. And
amazing.
He has over 5 million streams for his music. Wow. And he's a little down one day about 3 weeks ago, and I'm like, "What's up?" He said, "Dad, there's this guy I produced like 2 or 3 songs with, and he has the #1 song in the world today."
Oh.
I said, "That's fantastic." He said, "But it wasn't my song."
Right.
I'm like, "So what? You're like this. You're 19 years old.
Yeah, you're
and
right
you
there.
worked with a guy who has the #1 song in the world, not California, not the country, not North America. The world. And there's Drake out there, and Gaga, and all these different Jay-Z, and
what did he say?
He said, like, "Dad, but that doesn't change how it is." I said, "You have to look at things with a different lens." And I told him the lens that he has to look at things with. And I said it this way, because he had asked me about an internship that he had a 1 in 100 shot of getting.
Yeah.
He said, "I really shouldn't do that. I really shouldn't, do that. Go for that internship. I just put my energy towards something else. There's only a 1 in 100 chance of getting it at Sony." I said, "Really?" I said, "Sit down for a second, Zion." I said, "Do you mind if I present a hypothetical situation to you?" He said, "No, not at all, Dad. What is it?" I said, "Let's pretend it's your birthday and I throw a party at the beach, okay? I invite 99 of your closest friends and associates. There's 100 of you at the beach, and it's just a beautiful day. I've got the barbecue going, all the food you want. Perfect day. And right before you guys go in the water, I say, by the way, I just want to let you guys know I'm taking off, but one of you is going to be killed by a great white shark. Have a great day." "How many of you are going in the water, Zion?" He's like, "Dad, what the f*** are you talking? None of us are going in the water."
Right.
"Why not? There's only a 1 in 100 chance of getting it. Killed." Dad, don't be silly. It's like, but there's a 1 in 100 chance of the internship. Why you? I don't understand.
Yeah.
So it's all about perspective.
Right.
Now, my other son has to do with what the entrepreneurial spirit, like what you were talking about before, and Zion also entrepreneurial, but he sells high-end Nikes and Jordans now.
Uh-huh.
And he's killing it. Like every month, it's like exponentially more money to the point where it's like he's 18, his name's Asher, and it's insanity. Like sometimes he has 300 pairs at a time and these shoes can go for like thousands or hundreds or whatever. And like, remember, people say like, to you, how much money do you make on that or whatever? And if you want to figure stuff out, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
So if a guy sells shoes and he's selling 300 pairs, a month, you can kind of get an idea,
Sure.
even if he made $50 a shoe, you can kind of get an idea of what's possible.
Yep.
It's crazy. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, I go out of my room. He's just sitting there, like with his head in his hands. I'm like, "What's up, Asher? It's the best month you've ever had in your life. What's wrong?" And he's like, "Then why aren't I happy?"
Oh,
Dad, what's going on? Why aren't I happy? And I stood up and I did something that probably all fathers across the world will probably send me to jail for. I stood up and I said, "Good. Great that you're not happy." He's like, "Dad, what are you talking about? What do you want me to be unhappy?"
Yeah.
I said, "No, I don't want you to be unhappy. The reason I'm saying good is that lets me know that you are going to be, and you are, an extraordinary entrepreneur." He's like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
I said, "Because once you achieve the benchmark, you get to that point, you enjoy it for a few hours or a day or whatever, and then you start thinking about, how am I going to raise the bar?
Yeah.
And how am I going to be a better representation of myself? How am I going to scale my business better?"
Yeah.
And that's good. I'm not saying being depressed is good, but I'm saying,
Never satisfied.
You could be satisfied in the moment, understand what you're doing. So it's like I said, and you got this house, one of the greatest accomplishments of your life personally, probably.
Uh-huh.
And then it ends and it's like, oh, the stress of keeping the house, getting it, making the payments, doing whatever. But you're doing it. Same with your career. Like when Vine got unplugged and you had 3 million subscribers. You have choices. You can pack it in. Fuck this. The world is telling me that I am not cut out for social media, so I'm going to do something else. Or you can fight back and say, okay, let me figure out another angle.
Yeah, another app.
And that's what you did. Sure. And then when another door closes for you, you're a guy who figures it out. And that's why I was so excited to sit down with you today, because I don't know if your audience understands what it takes. They understand the entertainment and they're entertained, but I don't think they understand the skill set and the natural ability to navigate through the ups and downs. And every one of your viewers and the people who are watching or listening to this, they all have that ability, but they get in their head like that. I was just on the phone with a comedian who shall remain nameless.
Yeah.
I don't know, Barry. I'm just, I'm going to give up. People just don't want to put me on. They don't want me to, the world doesn't want me to do well. I guess I'm going to have to do another route or something like that. And I said, how many times you been on the past 2 months here in LA? 3. I mean, clearly nobody cares. I mean, nobody wants me. I'm like, that's really interesting, because I have 2 interns that have gone on over 50 times in the past 2 months.
Uh-huh.
And they are not as experienced as you.
Yeah.
They're not as great a comedian as you. Both of them would mention that.
Yeah.
Yet they're getting on everywhere. Are they better than you? Are they Do people like them better than you? You're the nicest person that I know.
Yeah.
No, it's because you're not going at it with that sense of urgency, that undeniable sense of urgency. And that's what you have done in your career.
I try to explain that to people in my life sometimes, like to my kids or whatever. Like, I don't think or I've had like assistants before, or I don't think people understand like the sense of urgency, the like the veracity that all of this takes. Like, you have to go at it every single day of every single hour.
I always say these things like Mitch, you don't mind if I talk to Mitch for a second?
Ahead,
I know
we always talk to Mitch.
He's not on camera, but Mitch, tell me something that you really want to do. You really have wanted to do, but for some reason,
give yourself a mic, Mitch.
But for some reason, you haven't done it. So just tell me something that's career-wise that you've wanted to do, but you haven't done yet. I'm going to give you this as an example.
Yeah.
Something I've really
like a goal of yours.
Is this the correct? Okay, here we go. A goal of mine. Well, I'm in the process.
No, not what you're in the process of. A goal of yours that you've wanted to do.
Make a film
for a long time.
Right? Direct a film?
No.
No? Okay.
I think if you would have asked 18-year-old me, I would have said yes to that.
Yeah.
But a goal of mine is to not have to work after I'm 40. Which is an insane goal.
Could you be a little...
Barry's like, never mind, forget it. Bad subject.
Could you be a little more vague?
I think it's pretty clear. He don't want to work after 40.
I'm talking about I'm talking about something that, you want
to accomplish.
That you want to accomplish. And I'm not talking about a long-term goal 20 years from now. I'm talking about something that you want to accomplish that you haven't worked on, that's on your list, that is something really important to you that for some reason you haven't done it. You know what, Mitch? I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something else. Okay,
Such a good question.
This is better. This is better.
Such a good question.
This is better, Mitch. Okay, I presume that you are a podcast producer and you know how to do this technical stuff, right?
Correct.
I presume that if you were to add up all the money you made in this year and amortized it to what it's going to be this year, there would be a number that it would be, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So let's presume that number for the whole year was $37,000. Let's just presume for this work it was only $37,000.
Okay.
And I told you that in 2025, you need to make $100,000 in this work, or you will never see your loved ones again as long as you live. They'll be gone from your life forever on December 31st at midnight. Are you going to make $100,000 next year doing this, or are you going to let them all perish?
I will make $100,000 in the next year, not just podcasting.
I didn't say that, Mitch.
Just podcasting?
This work. Are you going to let them die, or are you going to make it happen?
Well, I'd figure out how to make it happen.
That's right. You would figure out a way to make it happen.
Jim Brewer, are you going to let your family die? Jane Cook, are you going to let your family die? This is how Barry gets them excited, and it gets them to be the...
So the point...
I would not let my family die.
The point being, there's a sense of urgency. One of the things I've talked to Jason about on my podcast...
Oh, I love this, yes.
...is like when the Vine got unplugged, I said, how did you get up off the canvas and go and forward? He's like, I have 2 kids. I have to provide for my kids.
Yeah, my kids would
if I don't do that, my kids are going to be not doing well. And so the thing is, everybody has that in them, but they don't do it. It could be anything. You could take anybody. Let's say there's a young actor here, and they're like, "Oh, Barry, I can't book a job. I try whatever I do." I say, "Okay, well, if your mom was being held hostage and you weren't going to see her after December 31st, if you don't book an acting job by then, are you going to book an acting job? Of course.
Yeah.
Then book a acting job.
Yeah.
You know, and do it. It sounds easy. It's not easy.
But what do you think about? How about specifically in my situation? What happens?
I told you in your situation, but you fought me back.
You wanted me to go on tour.
I want you to do things that, look, there's 8 cylinders in your car engine.
Right.
Okay? And I want you to use all of the cylinders. I'm not telling you, go on tour, everything else.
Right.
I'm telling you, like, hey, I'm just throwing this out here. I don't know the answer. How many books have you written?
One.
And how old are you?
51.
Okay. Is it possible you're capable of writing another book that could create revenue for you and could inspire people?
The problem, Barry, is...
Oh, wait, I don't want to hear about the problems. I don't want the problems. I want the solutions.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be a... I'm just trying
I like this. This is great.
All right.
I'm like, I don't even like it for the podcast. I actually want the advice.
So let's go for another thing. Okay. So I told you about the tour, going on tour with a group of people. Well, Barry, the problem is I don't feel that good as a stand-up comedian.
Right.
Then surround yourself with people who you feel great and you feel have something to offer. Take that aside.
Right.
And forget that for a second. Let's look at something else. Do you have anything, a licensing deal for any kind of thing that has your name on it that's like Jason Nash hot sauce?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you think maybe there's a possibility that there's anything that ties into your brand that could be a fun product that people could buy and want to use?
Sure.
But you're not doing it.
Right.
Okay. So I like to look at all the cylinders in somebody's engine and see, and go for them.
So here's my question.
And they might not all work and some might fail. But at least you're going forward and doing it.
So here's my question. What do you tell people when they have families and stuff, and when you want to like venture out and be an entrepreneur or write a book or whatever, that is like time where you're not bringing in money. So that's where I'm caught. Do you understand?
Yes, I do, and I'm going to tell you and your audience my thoughts on this.
Great. Go.
So anybody who's watching this or listening, and again, this is just me. I'm just one person's opinion. You can take as little or as much as you want from this.
Yeah.
The first thing I like to have people do is I like them to take an inventory of the hours of their life. So take the whole week, however many hours there are in a week. I'm sorry, I should know this by heart because sometimes I do it by the year or by the month or by the day. But let's just take the week, for instance.
1,428 hours.
1,428 hours. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay. Mitch, will you corroborate that?
Well, it's 24 hours a day. There's 7 days a week. 7 times 20 is
that can't be
140. I'm sorry. 7 times 20 is 140, and 4 times 7 is 28. So it's 168 hours. I'm sorry.
Is that correct, Mitch?
168.
Right,
my bad.
So much. Don't worry. Jason, that's why Mitch is here to edit this out to make it look like we're geniuses when it comes to math.
168.
So there's 168 hours.
Yeah,
okay, so what I like them to do is I like them to put like almost like a graph or a pie chart together of percentages.
I like this.
And so just bear with me. So normally people, let's just for the sake of argument, say the average person sleeps 8 hours a day.
Sure.
So we got the 8 times 7, that's 56 hours there. So that's subtracted off. Normally, our activities of daily living, which for those of you who weren't working with populations like this, that's you're going to the bathroom, you're showering, you're taking care of yourself, you're doing whatever it is, those things. And you take those hours, you subtract them.
Yeah.
And then you go through your life and you look at how many hours you're on a dating app or how many hours you're on social media looking through TikTok videos and everything. And you look how many hours you're doing the podcast, how many hours you're driving from place to place, whatever it is. And then you'll see a whole breakdown of what you're doing with your time. And you will see the multitude of hours that you spend not making money. That you're telling me what happens. I mean, if I do that, I'm not making money.
Right.
But, I can't tell you how many comedians, hey, if I do that, I won't be making money. And then they pick up the phone and are scrolling through Hinge. Okay, she's good. Okay, she's good. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It's
right.
Then,
so that's actually really good advice. Take a look at your hours. That would be the first thing you would do. What would be the second thing you would do?
Well, once you take a look at the hours, then you have an understanding of where you're spending too much time and where you're not monetizing the time you're taking. Like, for instance, an example, a friend of mine who shall remain nameless, they work in the entertainment profession, and they oftentimes like to hang out at comedy clubs. Now, I want to preface this by saying that Neil Brennan once told me something very profound, and it can be very true. He said, nothing ever happened to me that wasn't initiated by initially being in a comedy club.
Oh, yeah.
And so, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great things that can happen in comedy clubs. But at a certain point in time, if you're in a certain part of the profession and you're going to comedy clubs for 3 months and you're not generating any jobs that are you got to look at yourself and say, okay, let's break this up a little bit. Maybe we go just an hour to this comedy club, say hello, an hour to this one, an hour to this one, and the rest of the time we work on this.
Right.
Or, just what it is that can monetize your hours and what you're doing. And don't get me wrong, I'm a hypocrite in the sense that I do the podcast, as we joked about, in my spare time, and it's like another person could say, "Yeah, you're a hypocrite, Barry. You've always fucking spent an hour on the podcast. What are you doing? You don't make.
Well, you're not. You don't make money.
You don't make money
you're not
off
wrestling
that.
with anything. You've reached a point in your life where you're like, you have your kids, you have all your accomplishments, you have,
Yeah, I want to do the podcast to be of service. I'm here, and as much as I love you and mildly like Mitch, I am not here because
I know
of that I want
trying to go viral.
I'm not trying to go viral.
He's not trying to go viral, guys.
I'm not trying to go viral. I want to, but if something does happen where more people watch it and it helps more people, or something I can say that can be helpful to somebody in the business or not in the business, then that's a dream, because that's all I want. I sit across from you. Look, I have so much respect for you. You have no idea.
Right back at you.
And I hope this isn't wrong to say, because it's been a long, long time, and you can edit out whatever you want. Your first wife was one of the greatest people to me.
She's great.
In my business life. She always treated
wonderful.
me like I belonged. Even when I didn't belong.
Yeah.
And she always was so kind and generous, and I loved my business relationship with her, and just so when I sit across from you, it brings back a lot of memories, because there's a lot of things that happened early on in my career that I was sharing with her throughout our work together, and just hanging out with you and seeing your work early on too when you were starting,
doing different shows
incredible.
With her and stuff. What do you think about the state of television? And so now it seems that the number one streaming service right now is YouTube. That is the number one. What do you think will happen with these streamers? Do you think that they're out of money? Netflix, Hulu, all that? Or do you think that is there too much content?
No, what this is what's great about the world. It's like you go to the Comedy Cellar, in New York, and you're walking to the Comedy Cellar, and you're on Bleecker Street, and there's everybody all around, and you're right at McDougal and Bleecker, and you're like, holy shit, there's a cafe there on that corner. There's a cafe on that corner.
Yeah.
There's a cafe on this corner and a cafe on that corner. Well, and they've been here forever. Like what, there was one here at one point in time.
Yeah.
And then there was two.
Yeah.
And then there was three, and then there was four. How do they all survive? They all survive because they figure out to create something within their menu or their atmosphere that makes you say, hey, let's go to this place today, let's go to that place tomorrow, whatever.
Right.
And the people that don't navigate and figure it out don't. So when you go to the Comedy Cellar, they now have 3 clubs. They're building a 4th, but they're 4 of their own.
Oh, really?
That they're, and people might say, well, if there were 4 different clubs, would they be competing with each other? Yes.
Yeah.
But
they all own all 4. So they took the cafes out and they're making comedy clubs?
No, this is in another area of the McDougal Street.
Oh, another area. There's more comedy clubs coming on McDougal?
Yeah, they have 3 now. They're building a 4th. So the point I'm trying to make is that, what do I think about the streamers? Well, the ones that go out of business are the ones that aren't the Jason Nashes, who figure out how to survive when something's not going their way, change the direction. Look at Netflix. They're just, all they're doing is similarly to what people have done forever, like in commerce. Like, let's say Japan will come over with a car that's really great, that's less money long ago. And then once they get the market, they start raising the price up and doing whatever till it's, sometimes it's as much or more than something else. Yeah. China is building or has built electric cars that, Elon Musk has laughed at. And now they're building cars that are a third of the money, that have a charge that's like 4 times as much. Yeah. And they'll come over here and sell them, and then people buy them, and then they'll raise up, and it'll be a thing. So Netflix, what are they doing now? They're doing ads. Yeah. What does regular television do? Ads. So what they did was they came in and they took a model that took the viewers away from network television, and then when they've got them hooked, now they can offer the ad-supported. Deficit. Because they realized they weren't making as much money as they could, and they're navigating like Jason Nash did when he was going through, but other people don't.
Have you heard that Netflix could go to a model where anyone could upload? That's what I've heard.
But it doesn't. But the thing is, and I've heard that too. But the thing is, anything will happen and can happen to the visionaries who decide how to navigate and survive throughout the things, and the people that go away are the people who don't figure it out, and that's just the way it is, And
who's somebody? I have a couple questions. What's the biggest check you've ever seen?
The biggest check I've ever seen?
Or the biggest wire?
Oh, my God.
Like Dane Cook told me one night he did a stadium, and he went downstairs after.
I was there.
And he told me, I don't remember what the figure was. It was a lot. And he just remembers seeing that figure like through merch and through sales. You were there.
Yeah, it's like, I remember, I hope he wouldn't be mad if I said this. I remember, another thing he really believed in was merch. Yeah. And we spent hours and hours with designs with merch just to make things and different kinds of things for women and men, and do something different that no one else was doing. And I remember thinking to myself, like, God, we're spending so much hours on this merch. Like, this is crazy. Like, we don't even know what's going to happen. Yeah. And then the first arena that we went to, I remember seeing the amount. I think it was $247,000 in merch. And I hope, he doesn't mind me saying that, because I'm not disclosing what he made on his tour.
He gave me a similar figure when he was on the pod. So.
But, and I'm not going to talk about but, all you got to do is do the math. And when somebody's doing a arena tour where they're selling out for so long, and they're 15 and 19,000 seat arenas, and the checks were like, they were massive. They were like nothing I'd ever seen before. But I've always believed that it was important to act like you'd been there before. So I never got excited about the money. I've never gotten excited about what's going on and how it's happened. I only
This too shall pass.
Yeah, I get excited for helping an artist achieve all their goals of what they want to do, their bucket list, and I get excited in helping new artists, like I do on this Blueprint for Success thing I do, where I, again,
tell us about it. If you're a comic out there, Barry has a thing called Blueprint for Success, and you basically, it's kind of like a Discord, right? Where does
it's a platform. It's a platform where you can go on blueprint-for-success.com, and you can. It's a free community. There's close to 1,000 people in the free community. We've only been up a year. And but there's different tiers, and if you want different kinds of things, there's over 100 hours of content on there that I worked on. But there's also these meetings every Monday night with me, and then you can get time with me on certain nights too if you're a certain part to help you with your career, and it's something that I can do where I can give back to.
Do you have a lot of young comics in there?
There's young comics, there's old comics, there's directors, there's writers, there's hosts, there's podcasters, there's actors, there's all types of people of all levels, headliners, and it's just a really great community. But
check it out.
But it's again, it's just a way that I thought of during the pandemic where I could give something back, but I could also, if I'm going to take time at my nights and my weekends to do something, where I can also do something that's a business model, but it's also a place where it's a business model to help artists become more successful. And so what we talk about today.
Well, I mean, the information you've given me today is so valuable on your podcast earlier, and then also today. Like, I'm really going to start thinking about things differently. So,
what's your audience? Would you say most of your audience, are they just people?
I would say most of my audience are like people from like 18 to 25, and they're looking for answers. I mean, I remember when I was 18 to 25, I was lost. I mean, I think especially guys, like I didn't really understand life until I was like 30, 35. So anything you can impart on them.
I'm going to tell.
And you already have. You've already given them so much, but.
I'm going to share two things.
Please.
I've made no impact with Mitch whatsoever. It's awful. But.
He wants to retire and he was 40, Barry. What don't you understand?
He's a 2%er. He's a ginger. He's got it all going for him. It's like 2% of the population. It's unbelievable.
Mitch, you got to get out of the podcasting game if you want to retire by 40. You got to get into finance or real estate or selling sneakers like his son.
I hope this, I'm trying to think if, I'm going to say it anyway if it gets to me. So I had a birthday dinner for my sons. They're eight days apart. They were born, so they're 19 and 20 now. And, in music, it's fascinating because, one song, you could fail literally 999 out of 1,000 times, and you do one thing that works, and you're putting your money into piles, and dancing on it.
Yeah.
And there's many professions that young people go for that they have a passion for that's more challenging than others. Like stand-up is, it's like the odds are trying to sell a television show or whatever. But when it happens, it's major. But when you go and you gear up for that kind of career, you have to understand that the odds are against you, and you have to put as many lottery balls in that hopper as possible to make sure that you can make it.
Yeah.
So my son is in this great situation where he's aligned with all these amazing people, and he's very close. But, from all of his music, what is he made $50,000 so far for it? Now, for somebody who's maybe he's made 25, 50, but for somebody who's 19 years old, who's in his room making music all day, that lets me know that it's going to happen. But it's hard to see, and you don't have as much money as maybe other people have.
Yeah.
His brother, is an amazing chess player, Asher, in the top 10,000 of 22 million people on chess.com.
Wow.
But realized that, Dad, I love this, but only the top 100 people make money doing this.
Right.
So this is helping me solving problems and solutions. Chess is amazing, but I have to take it for what it's worth, and I'm not going to go forward with this because it's just too whatever.
Very good.
Now
That's really impressive.
But he's now with the sneaker thing, whether he does it for his whole life or he does it for a year, he picks something that he could be in the middle 50% of sneaker sellers, and he's going to do wildly well.
Yeah.
And so
I see.
And so there's something there, but he said something to me the other day. So the birthday party, he surprises his brother, and he gives him a present. He has a Chrome Hearts T-shirt, which we all know costs like around $300 or $400. He has these multicolored Nike sneakers that are like, even lightly used, they're like $1,000. Right. And in the shoe are 4 $100 bills that he gave that he gave to his brother. And I was like kind of stunned because my gift to his brother was less than that, way less than that. And I took him aside afterwards and I said, "Man, that was unbelievably generous of you. That was so incredible."
Yeah.
And he said, "Dad, there's something that you talked about that I listened to 3 times a week. It changed my life."
Wow.
And I was like in shock, like you are as a parent. You're like, "You listen to me? There's something that I did or whatever."
It's the best.
I said, What was it? What was it?" He said, "You told that story from that old-time comedian who was great, Tom Dreesen."
Tom Dreesen, yeah.
I said, "Which story?" He said, "The story about Sinatra." I said, "That's the story that it's what is it?" He said, "Dad, you remember the story?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." And this is the story, and I'll tell it in a not so long a way, but Sinatra was a nocturnal animal. He never slept during the night. So he would wake up his opening acts. Tom Dreesen opened up for him for 15 years. And I guess he would meet Tom around the back with a limo, and Tom would set it up for him or whatever. And when he went out, there was this woman waiting for Frank, that the doorman would try to keep away or whatever. And Tom went in the limo, and he saw Frank go by, and the woman jumped out and was crying, "Oh, Mr. Sinatra," whatever. He couldn't really hear everything that was happening. But then he saw Frank after he signed something, and she hugged him. He saw Frank go like this with his cufflinks and take his cufflinks and put them in the woman's hand. And she was just so taken aback, crying hysterically. And then Frank got in the limo, and Tom said, "Frank, what are you doing? That's just a fan. You just gave those cufflinks it's like your favorite cufflinks. I think they were like $5,000. You gold cufflinks. What are you giving them?" "Well," she said, "that your husband was sick, and then I was his favorite artist, and she wanted a signature. I gave it to her, and then I just gave her the cufflinks." He's like, "Frank, why would you give her the cufflinks? It's like they're your favorite cuff. I don't understand. They're so expensive." What? Yeah. And he said, "Tom, we're renting." Tom's like, "What, Frank? What are you talking about? We're renting." "Tom, we're renting. When I die, Tom, somebody's going to be living in my house. somebody's going to be wearing my clothes, somebody's going to be driving my car, and somebody's going to be wearing my cufflinks. And if I have anything in my life, it has no value to me if I can't give it away.
Wow.
And my son told me that. I'm like, and so
You must have cried.
It was really emotional.
I mean, I'm almost about to cry that your son remembered that.
And so
it makes it extra special because it's like not many people know who Tom Dreesen is. Yeah. I do.
Yeah. So
and the fact that like your son knows that you're like you have such an affinity to comedy and like picked up on that little story about Tom Dreesen was incredible.
Yeah, and so that's one thing I wanted to share with your audience.
Good.
And the last thing I wanted to share with your audience, my advice to your fans and the people who are wondering what's going to happen in the future. God, I did get emotional. That's kind of like
I'm weird. Barbara Walters all of a sudden. I'm making you cry.
It's like the end of this is the end of Jerry Maguire. I love you, Jerry. Anyway, what I always look at is I'm a big list guy.
Yeah.
I told you before, like, I always look at the list of what I want to do and what I'm going to do in any decision I'm going to make. And I put a list together of the pros and the cons. And if the cons outweigh the pros, I don't do it. I just won't do it. It's just... But I go deeper with the list, and I like to tell people this, and it creates a little bit of vision. You have to have a little bit of vision, and because you're sort of suspending disbelief, as they say. Everybody out there, if you pretend that there's like I don't know, there's one of those mirrored glasses where you can see through, but nobody can see you, and you're in a separate room, and they bring in everybody from your personal life, every girlfriend you had, every family member, every friend you have in your entire life. And then they bring in all the people that you've worked with, all the people, your bosses, your co-workers, people that you've done freelance jobs with, people you just went in and did something with. And they're all in this big room. And there's a facilitator in that room, if you can visualize this, that you're watching. And he says to everybody, okay, you have a pad of paper in front of you. I want you to write down all the things about Jason Nash that you love about him, that are the qualities about him that you think make him such an extraordinary, wonderful, successful person, both personally and professionally.
Right.
So they write all the stuff down. The facilitator takes all the pieces of paper and he puts them over here. And then he asks everybody, okay, now everybody, I want you to write down all the qualities that Jason Nash has where he complicates winning. He does things in a way that don't move him forward. It moves him back. All the qualities he has that you've had a problem with throughout your whole life that keep reoccurring over and over again that you've noticed about him.
Right.
And then they write down their top 10. And then the facilitator takes all the papers and he puts them over here. And then he lets everybody out of the room. And then he goes in the room where you're at, and he goes through everything with his team, and he comes up with a list of the number one thing that people say, the number two thing that people say. Maybe it's honesty. Maybe number 4 is that you're generous. Maybe number 9 is he puts the cap back on the toothpaste. Who knows, whatever it is. But there's your 10 things that people in your life, everybody in your life says are your winning formulas that make you the extraordinary person you are.
Right.
Now we do the same over here, and we have the list of all the things that you do that are negative and have a negative effect on you, your life, your earning, your personal relationships, your professional relationships. Number 1 could be that you're disorganized. Number 3 could be that you are not a good listener. Number 7 could be that you leave the toilet seat up in the middle of the night. Who knows what it is?
Sure.
And so now everybody who's listening and watching this, if you do this exercise, you have 2 incredible lists, but you got to visualize what people would say.
Right.
And if you put that list, the successful things, all your qualities up there on the wall, and then you take the qualities that people said were not going to help you be successful. Now you have your roadmap, you have your blueprint, you have your thing, because you have all the things you need to continue to do in your life that have made you successful, that continue to make you successful, and will always make you successful.
Wow.
And then you have these things over here that it's like AA, okay? It's day 1 today. You do a biopsy of all these things in your life, and you never exhibit these qualities again as long as you live. And every day you give yourself that imaginary chip in AA or whatever it is. And if at the end of the month you want to make yourself a cake and blow out the candle, do it.
Right.
But that stuff gone. Wow. And I guarantee you, if anybody watching this or listening to this does that, it will change their life forever, because you're only focusing on the things that you've been successful doing and that work. There's nothing on that other side that you're focusing in on, and it's just out of your brain and your consciousness. And then, you'll rise like a rocket ship.
Is that on your blueprint for success? Is that a little piece from it?
I hope so. I don't.
You don't know, yeah. That was really good, Barry. I'm going to do exactly that. How do you get rid of the negative side?
How do you get rid of it?
Well, yeah, you said you.
Like, in other words, you have this list in front of you of all these qualities that you know.
How do you get rid of the negative list? Just don't do those things?
Don't ever exhibit those qualities ever again. And you take it like you're an alcoholic and you have to be sober another day. And again, it's the sense of urgency, but on the other side, don't do these things. Don't. It's so weird. It's like
Who taught you all this? Your parents?
No, I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. But I when I think of all the things that we do that over and over again that aren't productive or that are hurtful in our lives, and then I think to myself, would I ever put my hand on a hot flame on the stove? Yeah, once, and I never did it again. I'm not going to go over to that countertop and put my balls on top of that and hammer them flat with a wooden mallet, because it hurts and I don't want to do it. But yet I keep doing these things. Really, we keep doing these things over and over again that hurt us. Why?
I don't know.
It's because it's somehow, I think, somehow it's just this thing that is embedded in all people. To keep the checks and balances maybe in their brain. I don't know how the world wired us, but it's something that's, everybody has it. Yeah. Everybody has these things. Demons. You don't know where they come from. You don't know why. Maybe it's genetic. Maybe it's the way the human race was built. So it requires, us to outfool God and the world and figure ourselves. It out.
Barry, this is awesome. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Industry Standard is the podcast. The Blueprint for Success it's on a website called Kazoo. What's it on?
You just go to Blueprint for Success.
BlueprintForSuccess.com. Go if you're a young comedian.
Go to Barry Katz.
Go check that website out. And because Barry, as you can see for the last hour, is full of really good advice. Dude, thank you.
Thank you. And if anybody wants to reach me, you can reach me on Instagram or any of the
Barry
platforms.
Katz on Instagram?
At Barry Katz.
At Barry Katz, yeah.
But I mean, I just want to say again, I haven't seen you in a long time.
Been a while, yeah.
And I've just had an opportunity to not only spend this hour with you, together. But spend another hour with you. And it's incredible. I will remember this day, and I'm not just saying this. I'll remember this day for my entire life and my career. I'll never forget this day, and you're really, really incredible.
Thank you.
And you got a good man here in Mitch.
Mitch is great.
I look forward to the future.
Nanu, nanu. We look forward to the future too, Barry. We'll see you guys next time. Wave goodbye, Barry. Wave goodbye to that camera. Bye, guys.